we don't have any special guests today. I couldn't follow up after having Steve Wozniak on it. People were asking like, who are you gonna do next? I'm like, I don't know. So I am looking to have some other people, and I've got some people lined up. But with the timing of this, I thought it'd be good just to do one without a special guest. And actually, some new things happening in the world of Canon. You can see all the junk that's behind me on that side. On the table there. I've been clearing out the camera bag for some new stuff that I'm gonna take down to Costa Rica. I just got the Canon 100 to 500 lens to borrow along with an R5. So I'm having R5, R6, 100 to 500, 24 to 105, 100 macro, and also I'm gonna bring a 100 to 400 with me. And that was like a real heavy thought process, like, do I really want to bring 2 long zooms? But because I haven't used the 100 to 500, and because it ends at f7.1 as opposed to 5.6, and because we're in kind of a darker environment, I want to make darn sure that I've got the right lens. So, and also it's a good backup in case someone else has any issues. So I will bring that one, and I'll show you the camera bag here in a second. So the interesting thing that's different about this trip is that, unlike other trips to Costa Rica, which I've done many times, and other trips to, other places, this one's weird because obviously with COVID, it's the first time I've traveled since February. And WPPI was my last trip, but right before that was India. And it's funny because I was just packing up my travel camera bag, and there's an envelope in here from Radisson in India. And I'm like, wow, I haven't even touched that bag since February. So that tells a lot about, my life in the last, what has it been, 9 months, whatever it's been. But I started packing up, and I realized like it's very different right now. I went and got a COVID test, my first one, 2 days ago, over at CPS. Really easy compared to the one where they go down your brain. It was just a swab in each nostril, 1 inch in, put it in a tube. I got the results back about an hour ago. That was negative, which is good. We didn't have to do that. In Costa Rica, they have different rules. And the rule up until October 26th was you had to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of flying, or you had to be tested within 72 hours. But then you had to worry about getting it back in time. So a lot of people were stressing out, including myself, like, well, what happens if I get tested yesterday and I don't get the results back in time for my flight? And actually, if I had been tested yesterday and not 2 days ago, it would have come back maybe, an hour before my flight or something. That would have been kind of crazy. So they took off that restriction, which is good. And they changed it to not having to have the COVID test, which is good and bad. I mean, some people that would say it's safer to have everybody coming in negative. So I asked everybody on our group to get tested, which I think everybody's doing, just so that it makes life a little more comfortable for us down there. It doesn't mean that we won't be wearing masks and things, but I think if we're in our own bubble and we're all doing well in the first couple of days, maybe we're fine. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So definitely weird to be in a situation like this, because I haven't traveled during the COVID times. I haven't been on an airplane. I'm not worried about being on an airplane at all. I think with the everything I've read, both from CDC, National Geographic, and other reputable sources have all said airplanes are very safe with the filters, the 3-minute refiltration of the air. And so I'm not worried about flying. I'm not really worried about being in the airports either. I think it'll be fine. I will keep a mask on and do all that. And I just saw that I got upgraded to first class, which is nice. I didn't even ask for that. So that's kind of cool for part of the flight. But even the packing process is a little different. Just kind of, I'm bringing a lot of extra masks. Actually, I've got all my sweatshirts and stuff, but look, I actually made Jeff Cable had some masks made. So I will be bringing that along as I drop stuff in my office. So I've got some masks and things to bring. And, but it's weird, I had to write down other stuff. Like you have to log into a website to, you have to get insurance. And it's really interesting what they did is the insurance that's required isn't just your standard travel insurance. It is also insurance for a hotel. So if I get quarantined, I have it'll cover the cost of staying in a hotel for 2 weeks, whatever, because the government doesn't want to deal with it. So you have to show proof of that. You have to go online, fill out a form, which is very simple to do. Gives you a QR code so that tomorrow when I get to immigration, I just show them the QR code, they scan it, and I'm good. So I had to get different insurance. I had to do that. I did the COVID test, all in preparation for the trip, but it'll all be worth it. So I'm going down tomorrow. I'm going down earlier than the rest of the guests for a couple of reasons. One is I want to get down there and just kind of test the system getting into the country to make sure that, if there's any gotchas, I can email people and let them know. Also, I've got a good friend who lives, a great photographer in San Jose, Costa Rica, who's going to take me to some areas I'd never been to, and for a couple of days of us shooting, which would be fun. So anyway, that's kind of the plan. As I mentioned, the packing process is usually pretty simple. It's usually, like going to Africa, it's like 4 pair of shorts, maybe 1 pair of long pants that are convertibles to shorts, and 4 or 5 quick dry type safari shirts, underwear, socks. I don't need much hair product, so just got my hair cut today and shaved. If you saw my interview I did with Zenfolio 2 days ago, I had a beard going, and I'm like, I can't get rid of it. And so, and the funny thing is, I shaved it, and then I was texting my wife, and I said, getting a haircut and shaving the beard, and I shaved it, and I saw a text from her going, no, I like it. I'm like, oh, well, too late now. But anyway, I can grow it back quickly. So prep for all that. Anyway, I started packing, and because we're going to the cloud forest before I go down to the rainforest with the group, it's going to be cold. And they told me that it's actually going to be wet and cold. Wet's not a problem, because if it's warm, the rain feels good. So I actually have to pack a jacket, long underwear, and stuff like that, which is really kind of weird because, after those first 2 days, that would be the last thing in the world I ever need. So the good thing on this trip is that we're in one place the whole time, so I can just dump that stuff off into the closet somewhere and not touch it until I pack up to leave. But packing the gear, which I'll take the camera off here. I don't know if that's going to work, but we're going to make it work. So packing the gear, you'll see I've got a lot of think tank bags here, and I've got my roller down here, which is my one when I shoot events, my travel roller here, which is the Streetwalker. They just sent me the new one. This is their Essentials convertible. And this bag here is really tiny and lightweight, and I really wanted to take it. But it's very narrow. It's made for mirrorless cameras, but unfortunately, it's a little too narrow for the amount of gear I'm bringing, so I probably won't. And then back there, I've got the regular Streetwalker bag in the back there. That's the regular backpack, but not a roller. But this is my roller here. I think this is the one I'm gonna end up taking. So right now I've got it all outfitted here. Whoops. So, here, let's see if I can do this. So I've got the 100 to 500 mounted on the Canon R5. I do have my Black Rapid strap here. Let me take that out for a sec. I've got the Canon 100 to 400, which I'm going to bring as my backup, just in case. I do have one flash, and I do have a flash trigger in here somewhere as well. There we go. So I can fire this with a remote flash, which I usually don't do at the resort, but I might do with the guys that we're shooting before I get to the resort. I've got a Canon R6 packed on the side here. So I've got both the R5 and the R6 here. And so 2 cameras, the 100 to 500 lens, the 100 to 400 lens. I've got a 24 to 105 RF lens, and I do have a 100 millimeter macro. I do have a couple of the converters. Actually, I need to remember to grab one more converter for the mirrorless. I've got my power supply for the computer, and then I do have my 16-inch MacBook Pro. I got extra memory cards. I've got the Pro grade cards in here, and I've got the 16-inch MacBook Pro here in the bag. I do have a tripod upstairs in my luggage. I do have a Wacom tablet that, because we're going to be in one place the whole time, if I can slide this into the laptop slot, I probably will take that too, because I do prefer to edit on. So I've got a Wacom tablet here on the computer, and I actually prefer editing with that as opposed to using the mouse. I usually don't bring it to places like Africa because we're moving every 2 or 3 days, and it's too much to move. So I do have this. I normally work on the medium size. This Wacom here is the smaller tablet size, and I believe this is the small one. Yeah, it is. And this one actually fits in, and actually I use it to protect the laptop. So I'll put it on the side that's up against the edge, and so if something were to slam into the bag, the Wacom tablet would take the brunt of it, and not the laptop. But I do prefer to retouch with that. So that's kind of the goal, is to slap that in there too. I do have in the pockets, I've got actually one solid state drive. I've got another SSD in my luggage upstairs, and then I've got card readers for SD and CF Express for both R5 and R6. I've got one reader here. I also have another one upstairs in the suitcase, so I keep redundancy of that. And I also have, what else is redundant? I've got numerous things that are backed up. Oh, I've also got a CF card reader. Not that I'm shooting to compact flash, but I know that some of the guests might be, and I want to make sure that if, God forbid, someone has compact flash and their reader dies, I've got a spare for them. So I've brought one of those. So the goal is to try to have as much gear as we can. I probably will bring, I do have somewhere around here, the little LED lights. I don't know where they are. And I usually charge those and bring one of those because it's kind of cool to put the little LED light on the tree frogs when we're shooting in the rainforest, and because they're little tiny guys. And I wish I had one laying around here, and I usually have one floating somewhere around my desk, and I don't see it. They're little tiny things, but they charge through USB and they work really well. So that's the whole system. That's all I'm taking. So I plan on living on the R5 and R6 with a long lens, with a 100 to 500 preferably. The challenge of the 100 to 500 is because it ends at f7.1, and because only 20% of the light comes through the canopy in Costa Rica, we're shooting at fairly high ISOs anyway. So I am a little worried about being at 7.1. We'll see if that's an issue. Now the good news is we have stabilization on that lens, stabilization on the camera. So that'll help me from moving. But of course, if the animal's moving, then that's going to cause a bit of an issue. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But until I get out there and try it, it's hard to say. So that's why I'm bringing the 100 to 400 as my backup, just because I have not done it. Now, if I take the 100 to 500 down there and it works as I suspect it will, then next trip I won't take the 100 to 400. I'll just rely on the 100 to 500. But I do like bringing an extra lens if I can, because again, if someone has any issues, and actually we did have numerous people that are borrowing equipment from Canon. So they borrowed everything from all the way up to 300 2.8s and different lenses they wanted to try. So everybody got their equipment, I believe, today, which is good. I got mine a couple of days ago, so actually yesterday. So I was able to get all this packed in. I do have extra batteries for each camera, and I did bring extra memory cards, but because I have the solid state drives and because I'm shooting to rather large cards like 256 gig, I could probably shoot on one card almost the entire time. But when I get back to the resort, every time we come back, whether it's afternoon for lunch break or evening, I'm downloading and backing up. And I will back up to multiple SSDs. That's why I've got two, just to make sure that I've got my images. And then the ones that are my all-time favorite. So let's say typical trip to Costa Rica, I'll shoot, I don't know, more than 10,000 images. There might be 10, 12 that are my ultimate favorites from that trip. Those I'll try to get uploaded to Dropbox from the resort. Internet dependent, of course, but the internet's reasonable there. So I want to get those in the cloud. So, that's kind of like my third backup option, is to make sure get them in the cloud so I don't have to worry about losing those images. Because ultimately, when I come back, the images are more important than anything, right? I have insurance for the gear, at least I think I do, being that some of it's Canon's. I've got insurance for the gear, and I've got, everything else. It's just, I want my images to remain. So that's kind of the plan. So they say to get to the airport 3 hours early because of all the requirements. And I hate airports. So the odds of me getting there 3 hours early are zero. I'm not going to do it. I'll get there maybe 2 hours early, maybe. I hate waiting in airports, especially with COVID. I just think it's like, I don't need to be in an airport longer if I don't have to, but I'll get there early enough. My first flight's just to Houston, so it's not even technically a international flight. So flying out of San Francisco, but it'll be interesting to see how this all goes. It'll be interesting to report back to all of you. I don't think I'll be able to do a Zoom from down there, but that would be really cool. Hadn't thought of that until just now. That would be fun. I did a Facebook Live years ago in the middle of a massive rainstorm down there. That was pretty fun. All right, maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll try that. We'll see if we can pull that off. But that would be fun to do. So we have 2 floater days. The way I schedule this trip is we've got 9 days down there, and it's all fairly well planned. I've been working with the resort. We're on WhatsApp and we're talking all the time. So we set the schedule. We finalized the schedule last night, and I've got 2 floater days in there. And the reason I do that is it's the rainforest. So for those of you who've gone down with me, you know that when you get down there, there's days when it's amazing, and there's a couple days where it might just be pouring. Usually the rains don't come in until about 4:30 or 5 in the evening, and we're usually done shooting anyway. But we had one trip in particular where it was just absolute downpours for like days. So I've got 2 floater days that we could do Photoshop work, retouching classes, critiquing, or pina colada in the pool, whatever it takes. So we've got floater days just to have a little bit more fun. And also, in that way, if we do get rained out on a certain day, we'll take that as a Photoshop day or a day off, and then just shift it what we're going to do. And that just gives us a little bit of flexibility. So on one of those floater days, maybe I'll try to set up one of these calls. If I do, it will be fairly last minute is my guess. So be on the lookout for that. Let's see here. I'm just looking at comments here. Oh, that's cool. Hello, Cristiano from Brazil. What if a card failure? James wants to know. That's a great question. James, I always shoot to 2 cards. Almost always. Well, actually, not almost always. Always. And the thing is that the cameras are very reliable. The cards that I use, they're pro-grade digital cards in a Canon camera. So I have very good high confidence in those. But I used to work in the memory card business, and the last thing I want to do is risk shooting to 1 card. So I always shoot to 2, and I always shoot RAW to both. I did a video and a blog about this. I don't shoot RAW plus JPEG because it slows the cameras down because it has a process twice. So I'm shooting everything down there to 2 cards. I've already got both cameras set up with large SD and CF Express cards. So I see that Calvin's on from Canon. Calvin, thank you for loaner gear. You came through. Appreciate it for me and the others. I
hope you guys like it.
What's that?
I hope everyone likes it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think they will, and we appreciate you getting the gear. For those of you who don't know, Canon has been awesome in loaning free gear to anybody who goes on the trips with me. And I know that some of the people on this call, I see some people I recognize that have borrowed some pretty good gear. And so Cal, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
But as far as the memory cards are concerned, like I always tell people, when you go and you invest the time to get down to, or to go wherever we're going and shoot, we don't want to risk not having those images. So that's why I just shoot everything redundant. I'm actually all about redundancy as much as I can. So I'm trying to, capture the images. That's why I don't want to do like a small JPEG and, whatever. By the way, hi, John and Catherine. How are you guys doing? I see you there hiding. But you want to make sure that you get the images. So I prefer redundancy in every respect. The only thing I don't have redundancy on this trip is 2 laptops. And frankly, I don't want to have 2 laptops anyway. But I've got extra card readers, extra cards, the 2 cameras, 2 long lenses. And so really the redundancy is there in almost all respects. I don't carry 2 tripods. I have 1. But I don't think, the odds of that breaking are pretty slim. And God forbid if that happens, you go handheld. So let's see here. And John's, is leaving or had to leave. He's got the 100, 500. He says, I'll love it. So that's good. I'm hoping I'll love the lens. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see. how it is at F7.1, and I will be more than happy to report back to you guys. Actually, I'll be reporting back because you'll see the images. I'll be posting probably, I usually post at least once a day of at least one favorite image from each day. That's kind of the goal on social media, to do that. We'll see. Chris wants to know if I'm going to the same place we went to in 2019. Yep, going over to Osa Peninsula, same place we went. I know, thumbs up. It is awesome. I love it there. They literally just reopened the resort 5 days ago on November 1st. So they were in, I've been in communication with the owners and management of the resort for the last 7 months. And they basically went into like a hibernation mode, as I called it, life support, where they just, we're keeping things clean and, and keeping it maintained and everything, but that's it. And so they had a very low staff, and they just reopened up. They've got, I think, a small group that'll be there at the same time as us, and that's it. So we, the good thing is, from a social distancing standpoint, I mean, we are going to be social distance by default, because in the Osa Peninsula, I talked to them about COVID. They've had less than double-digit cases total for the whole time. So once we're down there, I think we're honestly safer down there than we are up here in the Bay Area. And being that we're all getting tested, I think we're going to be fine. And I talked to the people down there, and there's no COVID down there at all right now. So if anything, we're actually inserting more of uncertainty to them, I think, than they are to us. So we need to be sensitive to that. But the resort is amazing. The people are phenomenal. They're going to bend over backwards for us because they're so appreciative of us coming down. And I love it down there. I can't wait for us to get down there, because the shooting, and I've said this before, but the shooting even outside your door is just like there's almost no downtime for me. It's hard as a photographer, because literally we get back and I'm tired and it's hot and you're humid, and you take a shower and then you hear like macaw screeching out your window, and you're like, darn it, and you open up your slider, go on your balcony and start shooting some more. Like, it's almost like an addiction thing. So but I do like it there, and I'm excited to be going there. So what type of safety processes will you have in place to deal with COVID? So the resort's got everything handled. If there's any issues, there is a hospital within a 3-minute drive of the resort. Thankfully, never had to use it. There's also another hospital on the other side of the bay. Prefer not to go to that one. That one's actually really good for snake bites. Never had to use that either, because I've never seen a snake really in the wild there anyway. And then of course, if things are really a problem, then we fly out to San Jose and deal with it. But I don't expect that to happen. We did have one guy, I think it was 2 trips ago, who needed a root canal when we were down there. Benny, he's like, my tooth is hurting. They sent him to a dentist. I said, I know there's a dentist right next to the ice cream place. And the people at the resort, like, now we have a better dentist, and they sent him over there. And he said to me, do you think my insurance will work down here? And I'm like, probably not, unless you have travel insurance that covers it. But his entire root canal, which was amazing, he said they did an amazing job, $300, which is incredible. And actually, a lot of people fly from here to Costa Rica for, I forget what they call it, like medicinal vacation kind of thing, where they combine vacation time and getting their stuff done, down there. So, but the quality of the medical care is fine, and I'm confident with that. And so, hi Linda, I see you down there in the corner. Let's see here. Good morning from Melbourne. Yay! I didn't see you, Sue. Where are you? You must be hidden and you're not showing yourself. I see Peter's got his tree frog shot behind him. Good call on that. Yeah, looking good. I remember that. Let's see here. Bring Dennis as a special guest. That would be fun, actually, Peter. I should bring Dennis on. I don't know. We'll see if the internet's good enough. I'll find out down there. But that would be fun. Dennis is the guide down there who's awesome. So that would be fun to bring him on. That's a good call. I'll remember that. Question for Calvin from Peter. What do you see? What are they finding in R5 and R6 sales? Who's buying what, and why are they making that choice? And Calvin, I'll let you answer that in 2 seconds. I will say I saw one of the guys that is a friend of mine from Canon, Fernando, who's like one of their top tech leads, posted something today. I saw that in in Japan, Canon is kicking butt in camera sales, and Sony's decline is like this, Canon's rise is like that. I'm encouraged by that because I'm such a Canon fan and because they're so good to me. But the products are amazing. So with that, Calvin, why don't you kind of talk a little bit about like the 5 and 6 sales?
Yeah, they both done really well. If anything, I definitely exceeded expectations on the first production run. And, you know, to me, this is just talking to clients of mine. R5 is definitely hitting more landscape photographers, fine art, portrait, studio type, and some wedding too, an event, you know, what's still going on for weddings. And then R6 is definitely kind of a mix of everyone, because it's a good price camera that's entry level. Good, they're both good for video, but R6 also, for the price, you have a lot of 4K video options, for example, and high frame rate HC. And then I'm seeing with R6 too, like photojournalist and sports as well, because it's almost like a baby 1DX. So it has that high frame rate that a 1DX has, and they're both screaming fast, but the R6 is hitting, it's definitely been requested a lot for me from photojournalists and sports photographers, and event and wedding too. A lot of wedding photographers love it because it's a good, you know, roughly, I think it's 2,500, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact price now, but you get a camera with the dual card slots. You get a great image at 20 megapixels, and it's very clean. So that's the thing too. Like people that want to do really high ISO photography in the dark, whether it's say in a dark rainforest or whether it's say in a dark wedding chapel, or, you know, photojournalists that need that high ISO, the R6, you do see the difference at high ISO with the R6. And then the R5 at the lower ISOs, of course, with that resolution, it's incredible. So it's been the mix that I expected. And I would say they're both, like, the feedback I've gotten has been great. They have been extremely well received, and they're selling really well. And it's great to see. I love it.
Yeah,
very happy.
The interesting thing about that is, you know, I got a call today from a photographer down in LA, and he's a wedding photographer. He's been a photographer for 40 years, and he has 3 R6s, and he had a couple of questions for me. So I talked to him for a little bit today. Never met the guy, never talked to him before. It's called out of the blue, and we're talking. And it's funny because one of the things I told him is and Calvin, you know this, I was all about the R5. That's all I cared about was the R5. Didn't really care about the R6 until I tried the R6. I'm like, wait a second. Like, this is a camera that's really good for, like you said, event photography where you don't need 40 megapixels, 20 is fine. And honestly, you know, I used to live on the 1DX down in Costa Rica, and that's 20 megapixels. So you're shooting with the R6 shouldn't matter. And I am bringing the R5 because I do want the ability to crop, you know, on certain shots where we're shooting back and I want to be able to crop in. And I'll probably use the R5 quite a bit. It's also weather sealed, which the R6 is not. I mean, you know, we're not shooting. I'm not going to be dumping them in a bucket, right? So, and if it's super hard rain, for those who've gone down with me, Peter, Chris, and others, you know that we're not shooting in hard rain. If it's pouring rain, we'll go back and take a break or whatever, or sit in the Sprinter and wait for it to, you know, slow down. But I think each has their own place. But and like Calvin said, the R6 from a cost perspective for what you're getting is, I mean, and Calvin's get mad. I have not touched my 1DX Mark III. It's sitting right there behind me. Like, I've barely used it since getting the R series because I'm so addicted to the mirrorless now.
The R6 is the same sensor as the 1DX3, so you get that same image quality and that high ISO, and the focusing is very comparable too. So it's
well. And the other thing is, Cal, I can take this bag with a lot less weight, and you know. And the other thing is, if you guys have seen the charger for the 1DX, it's big. So now I can take one charger for the old 5D or the new mirrorless now. I can take that smaller charger and charge all the batteries with that versus taking a giant charger. So like the amount of space from a charger perspective, and of course, let alone the camera perspective, is awesome. So it will save me carrying an extra couple of pounds probably. And like Calvin said, same sensor. And I've already set both cameras. I don't know if you guys saw the blog I did about camera settings for the R. If you do have any of the R cameras, I got all my recommended settings on the blog. But I went through and I changed them already to animal as the primary subject, not people. So that when I get down there, and I tested this, by the way, the other day. I was photographing. If you saw my social media post about a couple hours ago of a dog, this little puppy, cute. So I switched it to animal tracking, and there was a really cool bird that came by, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get a picture of that bird. And I was still in animal tracking mode, and I went and I photographed it, and it was like dead on, and it was like right on the eye. And the bird was turning and doing different things as it stayed on it perfectly. And those are things that you can't really do with the 1DX. So I think the combination of the sensor, the eye tracking, the high ISO, the smaller size, all of those things, like I said, I'm just excited to get down there and try it. So that's kind of where I am right now. It's as you guys know, because a lot of you have been on these calls in the past, I've been chomping at the bit just to get out of here and travel and just test this stuff. And it's funny because I've been trying to shoot water polo for USA Water Polo, and they finally got a hold of me a couple of days ago and said, "Got to shoot next week." I'm like, I'm not here. So finally got something, and I wanted to try the 100 to 500 for sports. And when I come back, that still may happen. It just depends on whether Calvin forces me to return it on time.
Yeah. We'll get the reminder email.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I know I'll get it. So
yeah, they're pretty fast on those.
yeah, if you guys have any other questions, you can unmute and ask questions if you want, to myself, to Calvin if you want, whatever. Let us know, because I just wanted to kind of bring you guys up to speed on what I'm doing and how I'm packing and all that. I should mention a couple other things. I am putting filters on the front, even though it's Canon's glass. I am putting the Tiffin HT filters on the front to protect their glass, because I still want to make sure it goes back perfectly back to them. And I've got, like I said, I've got the think tank bags, which I'm still shifting kind of back and forth on which one I'm going to use, depending on the size. Passport, obviously, and the documentation, COVID test documentation, all that stuff is in there. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, that's the key stuff. And then it's just a matter of the travel side of things. So, but if you guys have questions, fire them away. James wants to know if I'm using filters on my own glass. Yes. And actually, I will roll over here and I'll show you. I think this is the UV. Yep. So this is, I asked Tiffin to send me some more. This is the 77 millimeter high trans coated glass. This stuff is awesome. And literally, when I got the 24 to 105 f4 lens from Canon, I didn't even take, the minute I took out of the box, I put the filter on because I want the front element to be virgin. So I put the filter on and don't ever take it off. And that way it keeps it super clean on the front, and also it does protect it. So I do put those on every lens. The only lens that I don't have a filter on, I believe, is the 100 macro, because I don't usually take it out of here except for Costa Rica. And I've never asked for that smaller size filter. I need to do that, actually. So, and Bob wants to know if I've shot any sports with the R. I've done, Bob, the only stuff I've done so far is whatever I could, which was like surfing. And I did shoot some tennis with the R6. One of my clients' sons is a avid tennis player, and he actually is coached by a Wimbledon winner. So I photographed them, and I was looking for any kind of anomalies. I know if you shoot in certain modes, you get some distortion, and I did not have any. It was actually quite good. Although I didn't need to shoot in full, what do they call it? The shutterless, pure electronic mode. I generally use the first curtain electronic mode, and it was great. I mean, tracked the subjects perfectly. Eyes were sharp. Everything else was exactly the way I wanted. So everything I've seen so far with sports, like Calvin said, I mean, he's got photojournalists and sports photographers that are using the R6, and I've used the face tracking on the 1DX, which isn't even as good, when I was shooting the San Jose Earthquakes soccer game before COVID, and it was quite good even with that camera. So, do you have anything to add to that, Cal? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. Everybody still does it. Nope, still muted. Nope. Nope. Hold on, I can unmute you.
Yeah, I think. I'm sorry, the kids were screaming across the street. I think. Yeah, their school actually reopened here. It's a private one, so they were able to. But yeah. So the one thing I would note is just when it comes to like why someone in sports or photojournalism or someone that needs a big burst might use the R6 more. The R5 and the R6, like they both have high frame rates. They both have pretty good burst rates, but the R6 is a higher burst rate. So if you were doing like a long shot with more frames in it, the R6 can go longer. So that's part of the reason. But they're both like those two cameras they're phenomenal. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
R5 is an A camera, R6 is a B camera.
Yeah, the only thing that I wish for, and I'm going to do a blog on this too, is my wish list for the R1. Not that I know that there is one, and not that Calvin would ever admit that there was, if he knew. But there's certain things, like the wish list is really small. Like I'd love to see 2 CF Express card slots, so I'm writing to 2 super fast. And other than that, like I'm hard pressed to find, like, would I like to find even faster and better focus? Sure. Better ISO sensitivity? Sure. But I mean, like it's already so good on these cameras, but we can always ask for more. So
Yeah.
maybe a bigger battery. But although what I found with the battery life, Canon will say you'll get, let's say, 600 shots on a battery, and I'm easily doubling that. So
Yeah, actually on the R5 and 6 it was like 250 to 300, somewhere in that range. But I'm getting much higher than that too.
I'm tripling that.
Yeah, the battery quotes on that, at least in my real world experience using it, yeah, they're really low.
Which I don't understand. I understand why Canon would be conservative, but boy, that's really conservative. Because I mean, like I said, I've been shooting thousands of images on a battery.
Well, a lot of it is with battery life. It's so complicated based on the environment too, because temperature does have an effect. Like cold weather, batteries do die faster. If it gets too hot, they can also have issues. So
it also depends on how much you're looking at the back of that camera on the LCD.
Yeah, the LCD used,
like
how much you're looking at it. There is a pretty wide range in like the number of shots you get off a charge. There's another question here from Greg I see in chat. Do you notice any difference in image quality between EF lenses with converter versus R? Honestly, not really. I will say though that some of the sharpest lenses Canon makes are the R lenses, like the new 50 f1.2 sharper than the EF f1.2 I've used before. And there are some subtle differences. I think that in my experience, the 24 to 70 RF is a little sharper and better in the corners than the EF, but they're both ridiculously good. But there's not like I don't really see many huge differences. I would say like the 7200 f2.8 versus the EF3, they're almost like dead even. Like they're pretty.
I haven't even switched to the RF 7200 because, and so I've been using a lot. I've used the 100 to 400. I've been using a lot of the EF lenses on the R, and the adapters. I have 2 adapters. I've got the standard one, and I've got the one with the control ring, which is the one I really wanted. And I have barely used the control ring because honestly, the controls of the camera are so damn good. You don't really need the ring as much. It's nice to have there, but I'm going to use it more in Costa Rica for exposure comp, which is what I've set it for. But the adapters have been, I mean, and the adapters are not glass. They're just see-through adapters, basically. So you're not losing anything. You're just moving that camera slightly away from the back of the camera.
Yeah, they're brilliant. And I want to know, too, when you use the adapter on both of those new cameras, the R5 and R6, you still are going to get like a little bit extra image stabilization as well. Even with an EF IS lens, it's going to be even slightly better than it would be on like a 5D. And the other thing, too, is the EF lenses, like there's no performance difference using them on an R series versus like a 5D. Like your focus speed, all that is going to still be amazing with those adapters. Like Canon, the adapters Canon made were brilliant. Like honestly, I have had 0 issues in the last 2 years since we launched the EOS R with any of the adapters. So it's, you lose nothing using EF lenses on our cameras.
Yeah, and actually one of the advantages of having the adapter with the older lenses is that if I do want to use the 1DX or the 5D Mark IV or whatever, I can, because those lenses just slap right on. So if I were to switch to RF, now I'm married strictly to the R series, which frankly, I think I see happening to me anyway, but at least in the short term, I like the ability to grab a different camera and throw it on. So that's why I've not switched everything over at this point. But when you see a blog from me in the next 6 months that says, hey, here's all the stuff I'm selling, to switch to RF, then you'll know I've made the switch. So yeah, as far as the image quality coming off the cameras, both in the sensors themselves and with those lenses, it's been nothing short of awesome. Really, really good. And my take rate using the detection, the face detection and the eye detection, my take rate has been much better even than me doing a back button focus and locking on the eye. It's that good. So someone's asking about printers. David's asking about getting a printer. Mine is messy right now because I got all this crap on it, but I do have my Pro 1000 right here, and you know, it's got the ink cartridges down here at the bottom, and this is my mainstay for all my printing stuff. Look, you see how messy my desk is. Good, but that is my printer of choice, and I love that thing. It's been amazing. So all the stuff that's printed behind me, other than the frame, of course, those are all printed on the Pro 1000. And a lot of my clients' images that they get are printed on that printer. It's very, very, very good printer. So the only thing I would say about that is that there's the new Pro 300 that just came out. The Pro 1000 has been out for, I don't know, 4 years now, Calvin, probably?
Yeah, around there. I think that sounds about right. Maybe late 2016. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's around there. And with that said, like, it's the same quality technology as the newest printer base. I mean, there's slight differences, but Pro 1000 is just, yeah, that's a ridiculously good photo printer. I love that
printer. I've got, I mean, I live on this thing. So, and I love it when I get home, and I don't have any laying around here, but I've got some in the other room where I'll get home and I'll print, you know, my favorite images, like the one that's on the frame right now, that tree frog, which you can't really see because it's overexposed. At least here, if I bring this down, nope, oh well. But if I get out of the way, it would probably meter differently. Yeah, I did. But anyway, I'll come back and I'll print some of those images, and that printer does a very, very good job. So I do love the Pro 1000. It's been great. Like I said, it's been around for a while. Not that that's a horrible thing. That means the prices have come down, which is good. You know, but you know, I don't know when a replacement would be. Probably another year or something. But definitely a good product. So no knock on it. The other thing I will mention about the Pro 1000, I used Epson printers up until about 5 years ago, and I would say at least 5 to 10% of the time I'd bring the paper in, it would bring in skewed. So instead of going down straight, it would go down and kind of get stuck and it would go in sideways. And with the Pro 1000, I have never, and I mean literally never, had it bring it in, because it has like a vacuum thing. It sucks the paper in and pulls it down, and it is perfectly straight every time. So I don't waste any paper, which is really cool. So Herb says, will the new R cameras accept Nikon 7100 lenses?
No, unfortunately, I'd have to be a Canon lens.
No Nikon lenses on Canon cameras. Although, has there ever been like a Metabones type of adapter like that? I don't think so. Is there?
I don't know. I mean, Metabones makes a lot of crazy stuff, but there's a lot out there. I don't know for sure, but I would assume that any adapter would have to have some glass in it, so there could be quality lens. If you want the best quality, like, you got to use the Canon lenses.
This is coming from a Canon guy. Just remember. But yeah, I mean, like, no, and it's true. And I've used some third party, and you know this, I've used some third party lenses. I've used the Sigma Art lenses, and the Sigma Art lenses are very good.
Those are good. Yeah. I've seen people use a lot of those too, but for focusing performance though, and like the very best, the Canon stuff is going to be.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, if you're serious about what you're shooting with, for instance, when people ask me about getting a third party 70 to 200, I tell them, look, if you're serious about shooting, you only want the Canon. Like, that's my bread and butter lens. I've had that same lens now for God knows how long, and that thing has made me a lot of money, and it's so damn good. It's never broken. It's like, so that's my workhorse. I don't want to get a third party. You know, as far as like a specialty lens, like a, I don't know, like a 51.2, like you were talking about, that's not a lens I would use every day. It's clearly not a lens I'd take to Costa Rica. So, you know, maybe third party there. I love how Sue says that we're so Canon, we're loving Canon, but she loves her Sony A7 III. Here's the thing, Sue, and I've shot with you in Australia, so I'll be nice to you. You know, it doesn't matter, honestly. The camera's a tool. And what we talk about here is about about photography and the love of photography, whether you use Canon, Nikon, whatever. I mean, I talk about Canon because I know it. And and I was very upfront about the fact that the original Canon R was not a camera I was all that thrilled with. Didn't have two memory card slots. Initially the focus was really slow. And actually Calvin and I met when you were coming back from Hawaii, right after they announced that camera. Like literally, I think you just come back from SFO or whatever. And I picked it up and I played with it. I'm like, no, not the right camera for me. So I try to be really honest with all of you guys too. And if a camera's great, I'll say it's great. But here's the thing, Sony has been, and I've said this in the past, Sony was leading when it came to mirrorless cameras. And when people would say to me, why haven't you shot mirrorless? I told them, I said, look, I understand that Sony's really good. I hate their menu interface. I'm not used to the camera itself. But it was everybody who shot them told me they really liked them. That's great. And it wasn't until Canon did the R5 and R6, all of a sudden now I can switch and feel really confident. So, but the fact of the matter is, a good camera with a good lens, and more importantly, Sue, what you do with it is going to ultimately. I mean, I've seen people. We had one guy on a photo tour, not my tours. Before I even did tours, I was on another tour with a friend who's teaching, and there was a guy there who had two Nikon D3s. Now remember, this is back when those were the flagship product. He had like a 600 f4 lens. This guy had so much equipment. I think he was either a dentist or a lawyer. And he had probably 30 grand worth of stuff in his trunk, at least. And the guy was not a good photographer. I know he's not on this call. But I mean, literally, he had all this gear and he just didn't have good control of the gear. He didn't have good creativity and how he wanted to, compose his images. And the focus wasn't all that sharp. And I'm like, so it really is about you as the photographer as much as whatever gear you're using. Now, it's not to say that if you have really crappy gear, yeah, you may not be able to take as good a photo because you're not going to have the bokeh and all those things. But I mean, I talk Canon because I know Canon, but I have some of my best friends will, shoot Nikon or Sony. I might disown them as friends eventually, but not yet. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have tons of friends too that use every system. So the main thing is just getting out there and doing the photography.
Yeah, I mean, because it is about the passion of it, and clearly it's like having the right tools, whether it's screwdrivers or wrenches or whatever in the garage, it makes your job easier. And the same thing is true here, right? So having a good camera or the right lens helps. I mean, this is why it's interesting on this trip, because when I leave tomorrow and I get there and we're shooting, it will be all new stuff. Does it make me a better photographer? Maybe fractionally. Maybe I'll get a better take rate, or maybe I'll get a shot in focus that I wouldn't have without the eye tracking. That's what we're going to find out. But ultimately, can I take this camera and go somewhere if you don't know anything about photography and grab an R5 with a 100-500? And can you take great images? No. You have to learn it like anything else. So, that's that. So like I said, I've never told people that you have to shoot Canon if you want to shoot great images.
Well, that was one of my big regrets, Jeff, was that when you were in Sydney and I'd just got just a low-level Nikon, and I didn't know the camera. And I remember we were sitting there near the bridge one night and you said to me, because it was just the two of us, so I had your whole attention, and you said to me, is there anything you want to know? Nah. I'm such an idiot. Like now, if I have my little Sony, because I love the eye, same, and I can see like so much of what you're saying relates to the Sony as well, like the eye detection and all, so many things. Like if I could have that time back now, you'd be going, oh my God, shut up,
Okay, are you inviting me back?
Sorry?
Are you inviting me back?
Yeah, we've got a spare room.
You know what? It's so funny because I have a great friend who lives in Sydney, who I met up with on that trip when I saw you.
Oh, you don't want to go to Sydney. You want to go to Melbourne.
Okay, well, I want to do both, but I know that. But it's a shorter flight for you if we were to go back to Sydney and shoot again. So, but we could do Melbourne, Brisbane, whatever. But I do want to come back, and once the pandemic's over, I do want to come back, and I would love to do another tour out there on my own. So I will keep you posted.
Yeah,
sure.
we're 0000, so we're going well.
What's that?
We're 00, 0 deaths, 0 cases.
We can't say that. We're going the opposite direction.
Well,
Yeah.
we're just getting there, so that's.
Yeah. Well,
The other thing I wanted to ask you was a little bit. What do you think of the Photoshop changes?
You know what? So far, with Photoshop 2021? Is that I think it is.
2021, yeah.
Is that what they're calling it? Yeah. I've been using it, and it seems, at least it's not as buggy as when 2020 first came out. There's a couple new changes that I've yet to play with dramatically, so still TBD. I've used, like the basic stuff which I use every day, I'm still using, and it's working fine. There's some new features in there that look really interesting, but I've yet to actually have time to even play with them. So, which is weird because we're in a pandemic. You'd think I'd have time, but it still isn't happening. So,
busier than ever.
what's that?
Busier than ever for a lot of us.
No,
but
you are.
I've actually played with it some, but I'm still getting used to it. So it's too early for me to really give a good.
Do you think the sky replacement will be as good as the Topaz one?
Say it one more time.
The sky replacement, is it not Topaz? Who's the Skylum? What's the other sky replacement program?
Yeah. They've got, I've seen some of the stuff they're doing with like sky replacements, and I mean, they've done some stuff over the past, like the select subject, which was amazing. Way better than it used to be. So, I mean, they keep adding these features and it keeps getting better. The problem is, you have to then keep up with those features. And like Calvin was saying, it's hard to keep up with all of them. So, so far it's been good though.
And stable. Jeff, I saw a question here from Cristiano.
Yeah, is this the 1DX?
Yeah, now I'm working with the 1DX and the 400-28 IS, looking to upgrade for a 3 version. But now that I think about waiting for the RF 400-28 IS, and then looking for R6. Well, I don't know anything about a RF 400-28, but I will say I can speak to the 400-28 IS3, which I have used. That is insanely lightweight. Like that lens, that lens is one of my favorites of the super telephotos because just the weight of it is so light. You can actually handhold it. I mean, ideally you would have a tripod or monopod, but I love that version 3. But yeah, I don't know about a 400 RF yet.
But of course, Calvin, with that said, and I know because you work for Canon, even if you knew, you couldn't say, but yeah, I mean, my guess is that since the R series is the future, we'll call it, that my guess is somewhere in Japan, there's a bunch of engineers working on an RF 400, RF 600, RF 200 to 400, God knows what, is my guess, right? I mean, even.
Oh yeah, the system's still being built out, and there's more lenses coming for sure.
Yeah, 100 macro, whatever. Although the good news is, Cristiano, because we just talked about the adapters and how good they are, you're not giving up much by going with the version 3 and an adapter.
Oh.
So
yeah, you would not go wrong with that combo.
Right. The only thing, the only thing would be if you had additional clarity in an RF version. But it's kind of like the 7200. I don't know how much clearer you can get, and this is why I haven't upgraded. I mean, the 7200 2.8 version, I have the version 2, which isn't that much different than the version 3, and that thing is so damn sharp that, I mean,
oh yeah,
it would be splitting hairs if you were to find something sharper.
That brings up another note. Like the RF lenses, generally speaking, the differences are smaller in the telephoto end versus the wide angle, and that's because of the wider mount on RF lenses and being closer to the sensor. That only 20-ish millimeter gap. On the wide angle ends and the wide end of zoom lenses, you might see more difference than you do in the telephoto. So something like a 400, it would be harder to make that a lot sharper. But you never know though, because the engineers are doing crazy stuff, really good stuff. But I know Canon said that the 7200 3 AF versus the RF 2.8, it's like they're both like right in the same ballpark across the range.
Right. Monica says, seems like really bad marketing move to name anything 2020 for many decades to come. And boy, ain't that the truth. Like this is the year that we can all, I can't wait for this year to be over. And so Monica, Yes, we're right
Yeah,
there with
amen
you.
to that. Yeah.
God. Let's see here. Let's see. Jim wants to know, is there an update for the 100 to 400 lens?
I like I said, I don't know what's all. I mean, I know there's a lot of work being done on lenses for the RF.
No, but
moving
he
forward.
said new firmware. You can't do a firmware update to the 100 to 400?
Actually, there are firmware updates for lenses. It's not all the time that happens, but yeah, every now and then there is a firmware update for a lens that'll make a lens perform slightly better, especially on newer bodies. So yeah, I wouldn't rule that out entirely.
All right.
But
Well,
I don't
Jim
know
says that there's one out there. I will have to look for that.
Yeah, I'm just not sure on that one.
Can you? Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. Because
I think I saw it
there's
on
Jim.
referring to a firmware update, and I was just wondering how you actually connect the lens. There might be a little USB plug or something, but I've never noticed.
What I've done through the camera.
Yeah, what I've always done for firmware is just download the firmware file on the Canon support page. I think in Australia it would be. I think there is a Canon Australia page.
.au.
Product support or EU or US or whatever, wherever, and you download the file. Now, what I do is I put it on a clean SD card, like wipe the card clean in the camera first, and then put the firmware file on the card, and then you just put it in the camera. Then you go into the section where the firmware is at. I think it's near where like the erase card is at. I think usually in most of the bodies, and then you can just update the firmware through that. That's how I've always done it.
Sure. Okay. So it's actually a card put into the camera. It's not actually something done to the lens.
Right. So it'll update through the camera body to the lens, is what Cal was saying.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've not seen that, so I'll have to look at that. And that actually would be something I would do. Actually, I was going to check the firmware on the R6 and R5. Well, the R5 we just sent by CPS, so I'm sure it's up to date on firmware. I'll check the R6. I've got to make sure it's also up to date. By the way, one thing I did do, I didn't mention this, is on the cameras, and for those of you who have not done this, I highly recommend that you do. On the menu, when you go to your, whoops, hold on here. Where you can customize the green part of the menu for what you use the most. So I can get it in there. It's kind of jumping all over the place for focus, but so I've got all of my most used stuff on that menu. God, I'm trying. So I've unfortunately on the pro cameras, on the 1DX, you can save those settings and take the memory card out of one 1DX Mark III, put it into another one and say load the settings, so it'll create your whole custom screen. You can't do that. I wish they'd add that. I wish they would add that on the R series.
That's good feedback. Yeah. I've actually always pushed that feedback in, that it would be nice to be able to just automatically transfer all the camera settings and presets.
Okay. Yeah. So what I did was I just put this camera on. I put it in this menu mode so I could see what menu I had. And then I went through on the other camera, and I actually went through every menu and duplicated what I had, because I've changed a couple of things in the camera to mimic exactly what I want. So now the R5, the Canon loaned me, is set like the R6 is, so I can just don't have to think about those changes. I've changed, like, the back dial is back here is ISO, front dial is aperture, and this dial is shutter speed, and then the lens dial is exposure comp. And so I've got that set on both cameras. It would be nice, like on the 1DX, if you could just say copy those and have it go across. So so Bob says there is a 100 to 400 firmware update dated 11/5/20.
Just check. Just went live on the website. It's showing up in Canon USA, and I'm assuming Canon Europe, Canon Australia would have it up too.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy. You just download the file, and then actually it'll have a little README usually, or an instruction to say this is what you do with the file. Put it on your card.
Right.
I haven't done it yet though personally, so I don't know but it's really simple. And that brings up a good point with like cameras, particularly camera bodies, because they get more firmware updates, but also the lenses now too. Like if you own any Canon body or lens from even how many years ago, it doesn't matter. It's a good idea to, like, every now and then, maybe once 6 months or a year, check the website and see if there are firmware updates.
Right.
Because sometimes there could be a cool firmware update that unlocks a feature that even for an older body, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know about that. And then you download it and you're like, sweet.
I got to tell you, my company car, I just got a Tesla, and it's so crazy. Like, it just sits outside and it gets firmware updates from the Wi-Fi, and it updates the car. And the features, like, they have the coolest damn features that come across. It like literally changes the car. It's amazing. Like, it's incredible, like how much a firmware update can affect even driving. So
Shoot,
yeah, do your updates, everybody. I'll do my 100 or 400 update today. Now, like, yeah, it's funny. I just updated my phone today too, and I always get worried like the day before a trip, because I like, what happens if I update my phone and it just bricks the thing, right? But yes, we trust Canon's updates. And like Calvin said, put it on a Virgin card that doesn't have other stuff on it. Drop it in there, and I've never had any problem with updating them. So. And Sue says, one setting to change is don't shoot without a card. And you know, I have a list of things. There was a video I did, is if you buy a Canon camera, here's this changes you need to make. And one of them is turn that off.
Yeah, usually I'm one of those people that tends to turn that off too. It's,
yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I don't get why it's there other than if for a sales rep to show it. Like, why would you want to shoot without a card? I don't know. But whatever. Like, yeah, there's definitely some things. And if you look at my YouTube channel, there's one on there. It's a really horrible video that I shot years and years ago in front of a Christmas tree. The lighting is atrocious, but the information is good. So be it. I'm going to redo that eventually, I promise. I'm going to run. It's 2 o'clock. We've been on for an hour. I'm going to let everybody go. I need to finish packing and get organized. So, but thanks for everybody for joining in. And maybe we'll do this again next week from Costa Rica, depending on timing. Like I said, it may be a last minute thing where I kind of let you know, like, hey, we're going to do this this afternoon or whatever. But stay tuned. So thank you, Calvin, for answering questions. I appreciate you joining along.
Thanks for having me.
And everybody,
Jeff.
What's that? Thank you. I appreciate all the people that are writing that. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will report in from CR, and I'll tell you how it's going. And I'm going to spend the first 2 days down there on my own with that buddy of mine who's a photographer, and we're going to go explore Volcano and some other areas I've never been to. So look for some different stuff from me, hopefully. So, and again, thanks to Calvin and CPS for getting me the loaner stuff. And hopefully I have some decent images to share with you all soon. So,
sorry I couldn't make it, Jeff.
I know. Well, you know what, Ian? Next one, this will free it up so we have the right amount of the next one. We're good.
My wife and I'll both do the next one.
Yeah, I'm not worried. This is, you know, this will be a good test for now, and then we'll be good next time. But yeah, I totally understand. I mean, look, you know, with COVID, nothing is assured right now. You know, it's just the way it is. So
just stay safe.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Later, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Calvin.
Thanks.
You're welcome. See everybody.
Bye.
See you on Tuesday, Jeff.
You got it. Sounds good.
Yes, looking forward.